Hi everyone, Janie here. Welcome back to my garden. It is a dark, dreary day today. It has been raining nonstop all weekend and I have been indoors all day today, still doing some fun stuff, some seed starting and tending to my houseplants. But yeah, I am not going outdoors today. So I thought a fun video for today, since it's the beginning of February, is to talk about 5 gardening tasks that you can do in February. Most of them are when it's not raining, but I do have one that you can do when it is raining. So number 1, top of my list for things to do in the garden in February is to prune. Get out your pruners, get out your loppers, get out your hori knife. It is time to start pruning back your ornamental grasses, your roses, your summer blooming shrubs. If you haven't already done a lot of it in the fall, now's the time to think about it. Top of my list is ornamental grasses, because ornamental grasses, you want to make sure that you wait until after all risk of freeze or hard frost has passed, but you got to do it early enough before you start seeing new growth. If you prune after new growth has already started, you're going to see that haircut on your ornamental grass all season long. So you want to make sure that you get to it before it's too late. So think about your ornamental grasses. Then any other summer blooming shrubs like smoke bush, like Kniphofia, like Russian sage, what else? Matilaha poppy, all of those things you want to think about pruning. Now's the time to start thinking about getting them pruned and getting them ready for the new season. Number 2 on my February gardening tasks is to fertilize your citrus trees. We all stopped fertilizing our citrus in the fall just to make sure that we didn't promote any new growth when it was too cold and it might hurt those citrus trees. Now, most risk of frost has passed, at least for me. You know, you guys might want to wait, check your last frost date, but usually around February is a good time to start thinking about fertilizing your citrus trees like lemon, like lime, like oranges. Now, you can fertilize them in the ground, but you especially want to fertilize them if they are in pots, because those plants are relying on you to give them the nutrition that they need. So make sure you grab a really good organic citrus fertilizer and start fertilizing. And then however often you decide you want to fertilize your citrus, just go ahead and start that routine for the whole rest of the season. Number 3 on my gardening tasks for February is not fun, but it is something that I always think about this time of year because it's wet, because it's cold and rainy and damp, and that is monitoring for slugs and snails. Now, slugs and snails are seasonal. They only come out when it's weather like this, but it's really important to stay on top of it because it can decimate certain parts of your garden if you're not careful. If you have baby sweet peas coming out of the ground or dahlias just starting to break dormancy, they can completely demolish them if you are not careful. If you have hostas that have died back over the season, slugs and snails love the new foliage, the new growth on hostas. So you want to make sure you monitor for them, and if you are seeing signs, make sure you trap them or you bait them. My favorite way to deal with slugs and snails is using something called Sluggo Plus, which is bait. It is not snail bait. It is pet safe and it is kid friendly. I would never use the old, I can't even remember the name of it, but it's basically outlawed now. Sluggo Plus is just this really great stuff. It's little pellets, and it basically causes the slugs and snails to dehydrate and basically starve. If you choose the Sluggo Plus and not the regular Sluggo, then it will also deal with earwigs as well that aren't as big of a problem this time of year, but they're going to start becoming a big problem. And what you do is you just sprinkle it around your plants, and then when the slugs and snails crawl over it, they will die. There's other ways to deal with slugs and snails, like setting beer traps and you know, like tubes of newspaper or toilet paper rolls, things like that. You can check into it. But I just want to remind you all that it's something to think about. If you start seeing holes in your leaves, you might want to check for slugs and snails because you want to make sure it doesn't get out of control. Now, one of the most important things for dealing with any type of pest in your garden is prevention. Preventing them from coming and even becoming an issue is probably the easiest and the best way to deal with them. And it's the number one thing you want to think about if you're following the integrated pest management approach. So prevention for slugs and snails is keeping your garden clean. If you have a lot of leaves that have fallen, if you have a lot of debris piles, if you have a lot of plants that have old foliage, like Helen von Stein lambsir that gets the old foliage underneath, slugs and snails love living in those conditions. And so if you give them a spot to live, they're gonna live, and then they're gonna come out and they're gonna try and find food. So prevention is key for monitoring your slugs and snails. Number 4 for my February gardening test is something that you can do on a day like today where it is rainy and gross, and that is seed starting. Now, I know I reminded you all in January to think about seed starting, but I'm gonna remind you all every single month this spring, because come April, May, June, you are gonna be thanking me, and you're gonna be so happy that you went out and you started seeds, whether they be flowers, perennials, or vegetables. Now's the time to think about it. It is so rewarding to have a plant that you started yourself from seed, and right now is the time to start thinking about it. My last frost is very early. It is February 25th, so we're only about 3 weeks away from my last frost. So I can start thinking about starting kind of warm season seeds like zinnias or amaranth or even tomatoes, because by the time they're ready to be planted out, I'll be past my last frost. But I just want you all to go out, check your last frost, and then count back the weeks to where you're at today, and then you can kind of figure out what seeds to start growing. You don't have to have a whole seed starting setup. I will link a video that I just did on seed starting simplified in the description down below. You can just have a bright window, and that will be perfectly fine for starting seeds. But it's a really fun thing to do on a rainy day, and you're gonna be so happy come spring when you have those plants growing in your garden. Finally, the 5th task I have for doing in your garden in February is to remember to fertilize your camellias. I love camellias. They are such a fabulous, fabulous plant, not only because of their evergreen foliage that we get to enjoy all year round, but their beautiful, beautiful blooms that we get to enjoy at a time where really nothing else is blooming in the garden. Whether it be Camellias desenquas that bloom a little bit earlier in the winter, or Camellia japonicas that bloom a little bit later, more around this time, you are gonna have blooms at a time when there's nothing else going on. But to make sure that you keep getting those blooms year after year, you want to make sure that you fertilize your camellias as soon as they finish blooming. You also can prune them at this time after they finish blooming if you want to. So getting a camellia, gardenia, azalea fertilizer, which is an acidic fertilizer, is the best thing to do, and you can just follow the directions on the back of the package, sprinkle some of that fertilizer, and they are going to then have enough energy to develop new growth for next season, so you can have blooms next season. So don't forget to fertilize your camellias as soon as they're done blooming. So I know I said 5 things, but I want to give you one more to think about. I already talked about this in January, and that is, it is bare root season. If you're interested in planting bare root roses or bare root fruit trees or bare root raspberries and blackberries, now's the time. Head to your garden center and get those bare roots and get them planted in the ground. Here where I live, we're getting a little bit out of the season for bare roots, but you could probably still fit it in. But check your area and see if it's still a good time to plant bare roots. And I've said this a million times, but bare roots are so, so great, because that plant will wake up where it lives, and it'll just be so much happier and so much healthier and so much more robust. So bare roots are really great. Head to your garden center if you're interested in bare roots. And I want you all to think of bare root strawberries. Yes, you can get bare root strawberries. You can get them online, or you can get them at your garden center, and they are just as great as bare root roses or bare root fruit trees or anything like that. You can get the exact variety you want. They're going to grow so super, super fast. They're cheaper. My favorite variety of strawberry that I grow is called Seascape strawberries. They're so yummy, and I want to try and get my hands on some bare root Seascape strawberries so that I can grow them by the bowlfuls this year. My mouth is watering. So start thinking about bare roots, bare root roses, bare root strawberries, bare root fruit trees, whatever it is. So that's going to be it for today's video. I know it was short and sweet, but that's just the way it's got to be today on a rainy day like today. We actually have rain all week long, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to get out in the garden this week. I hope so. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope this gave you some inspiration to put some garden tasks on your to-do list for February, and I hope you all have a chance to get in your garden today.